We are back on Patriots Fourth Two, the official podcast, PatsFans.com. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me is Steve Balestrieri in the right-hand corner. In the secret square is Mr. Derek Havens. Guys, this is our free agent review show, and it's funny because it's not official yet because this is the tampering period, but reportedly the Patriots have signed a ton of players. We're going to go through all of them. We are going to talk about all the players that they have reportedly signed, which is a huge amount. We'll go through each and every one of them. I'll ask you guys your opinion on them. Maybe we'll rate them as well, their importance, and we'll also ask a question at the end of the show, which I think is going to be an interesting one brought up by Derek, is does all the moves in free agency affect how the Patriots view the draft now? And I think it's a fascinating topic. We'll talk about that near the end of the show. But to start the show, I'm going to go right to my friend Derek because Derek has, instead of Russ's rant, we're going to go right into Derek's rant. Derek, get us going here.
Well, it's been quite a couple of days, huh, guys? A nice little 36 hours. But I do have something I want to get off my chest. And, you know, it's really frustrating that no one wants to play for the Patriots. First off, I think we need to just discuss that. But honestly, I'm tired of the Belichick narrative floating around the last day or so. The Patriots have made an incredible amount of moves, some that we saw coming, some we certainly did not. Definitely not to the extent. And the way Belichick has really attacked this free agency period is something to really behold because it's been a whirlwind of news. But I'm really getting sick and tired of some of the narratives that are floating around about Belichick the last couple of days. And, you know, I'm going to go through a couple of them here. Linda Cohn, the ESPN anchor, she tweeted out earlier, imagine if Belichick got these weapons on offense when Brady was still in New England. Maybe he wouldn't have left. And honestly, with all due respect to Linda Cohn, I think this is a really dumb take. For 20 years, Belichick did everything he could to surround Brady with as much talent as he could. And I think they did pretty well. 6 Super Bowls, 9 appearances. I guess that's okay. But at some point, we all knew the team was going to have to reset. It was going down that road for a long time. It's still going down the road. Now we're here. And a fresh start was needed. Now Belichick's trying to overhaul the roster. And so to say that he never really, if he had done this when, Brady was here, maybe he wouldn't have left. Well, we knew that they were tied up with cap situation and old contracts and they needed to overhaul. Now he's doing it. Russ Tucker, former offensive lineman, does some media work now. He said yesterday, old Patriot way, get really good players to take less with Tom Brady. New Patriot way, overpay pretty good players to not play with Tom Brady. Again, another questionable take. I don't really understand it. Who did the Patriots overpay? Nelson Aguilar? I mean, I guess his contract's pretty high. I'm not crazy about the deal. The player I like a little bit, especially as a fit, but he's had some issues. We'll get to him in a little while. But his initial contracts are high, as are all the contracts when they're first announced. But then you find out more details, and it just makes these takes so much more ridiculous. And they're way more palatable. And we'll get to, again, some of those more specific details as we talk about the individual players. Yep. So let's fix the tweet now, Ross, okay? Spend cap space when you have to improve the team and set up the quarterback for success. That's what Belichick's trying to do. And now, of course, you see all these people, all the narratives are flying. Belichick's only doing this because of Tom Brady and Tampa Bay winning the Super Bowl. Brady's gone. Belichick staying up at night. It's an arms race, etc. Could that be a factor? Absolutely could be. I'm sure egos are real. I know that. I know Belichick says ignore the noise. The whole team heard all the frustrations that Patriots fans had and all the local and national stuff over the past year. But here's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is the team wasn't good. It was heading down that road. It needed to be reset. And that was not the driving factor. If Brady and the Bucs had missed the playoffs, I guarantee Belichick, this is the plan he would have had regardless of that. And, is it an indictment on the past couple of drafts? Sure, I guess they haven't had a lot of players worthy of bigger contracts, but it would be also arrogant and dumb of Bill to just ignore and not ignore the problems and not acknowledge and not try to find a solution. And sorry, I'm going off here, but to try to correct the situation and rebuild it is really Bill's goal. And the point is, the same people for calling out Belichick for being quote unquote desperate or just doing this because of Brady. After all these free agent deals are done, they're the same people who would kill him for not addressing the holes on the roster. And the Patriots have a lot of holes. They have a lot of money to spend, and they're actively trying to improve. The cap space goes down. There's a lot of teams throughout the NFL that are strapped for cash and cap space. He's targeting the guys that he wants. And basically just trying to get it done before the market settles and it's opened up to more bidders. Belichick said before that he wants players that love to play the game and they want to be coached. And when you look at Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Matt Junon, Jalen Mills, Kendrick Bourne, just to name a few, all these guys love the game. From everything you hear, they love the game. They want to be coached. And that's the way Belichick sees the right way of building this team, and he's capitalizing on the market. So all these narratives trying to spin this in a negative way to me is just incredibly disillusioned. You're just so disillusioned, and it's honestly quite ridiculous. Again, will all these work out? We can talk about that. Right. But the same people who were trying to bury Bill would be burying if he didn't do anything at all. It's basically a lose-lose situation, and to compare it to anything about Brady is honestly ridiculous. That's off the table. It's just at this time, I think Belichick's really just trying to be actively, improving his team like he does every year.
Wow, Derek, you actually went longer than my last rant. I actually really enjoyed that.
Sorry about that.
No, not a problem. Listen, very good stuff. And I agree with a lot that you said. I was just telling you off air that last night after I worked, I actually watched Boston Sports Tonight, and I saw the commentary on that. And I'll just say that I was expecting one thing. I just want to talk on the Pats, and I understand being a little bit negative, but there was a lot of negative. It wasn't just a little. There was a lot, and I was just surprised by it because, as you said, what did you expect them to do? You wanted them to do this. Now they've done it. Now you're looking at it completely differently. Again, you were talking about some going to complain one way or another because, again, it's an agenda-driven media we have here, and they're just continuing to show it. Steve, I want to go to you. I want to get your thoughts on what Derek just shared. And you actually had something interesting to share with us before we went live. Feel free to share that as well.
Yeah, and in regards to what you watched last night, some of the hosts, when you're a smarmy little dink, you can't help it. You're going to be a smarmy little dink your whole life, and, your takes will, telegraph your dinkiness. So, am I surprised by what you heard last night? No. But I wanted to share this with you guys because I saw this a couple of hours ago, and it was it cracked me up. And I was sitting here in front of my computer by myself, and I had started laughing. So I was like, got to share this with the guys. This is from Jerry Thornton on Twitter about 3 or 4 hours ago. The only thing more fun than all the Pats upgrades is witnessing the anti-Belichick extremists twist their brains into balloon animals, trying to explain how all of this is bad. Hashtag kiss the rings. I was like, I love it. I was like, Jerry, that was like awesome. I tweeted him back, amen. Because, are we surprised by any of this? The same people that bash Bill for standing pat early in the draft every year are the same ones that now are saying, he's overspending. Hey, the devil's in the details, and I can't wait to see how these contracts play out. But look, as Derek mentioned in the Derek rant, the cap is down this year. So many teams were in a bad way. Teams with a lot of cap space are at a huge advantage this year because they're not competing with everyone, and the price isn't going through the roof. Bill struck while the iron's hot, and he's given these guys 2, 3, 4 year deals. When the cap goes back up, these deals are going to be, less than what the market is going to be at the time. I think that what he did was a great move. Now, on paper, the Patriots are hugely improved. We'll have to see once they get on the field. But, when we're talking about free agency, we're talking about filling holes. And all of the holes that we talked about since the season, the season was still going on in 2020. We recognize the holes that were there. They're filling them all.
Yeah.
And look, free agency is a time where teams should should fill holes. You don't really want to draft for need. You really should draft on best player available, which the Patriots, that's their philosophy. You can attack free agency in a certain way where you should address needs. Now, obviously, it just depends on the cap and the cap available, the cash available. The team had a lot of it. So that's why they're maximizing right now. And look, we talked about it on the last show a couple of days ago. We wanted to see them go after guys who could be pillars here, could be foundational pieces for the next team moving forward. Go after guys in their mid-20s. They're doing that.
Absolutely.
They're absolutely doing it. And they're finding guys that are, incredibly important. Just to talk about a couple of them right off the bat. You look at the tight ends specifically, and Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, just unbelievable additions to have. We talked about wanting one of them. They got both of them. Anyone with any real knowledge of the offense that speaks, and I don't mean myself, I mean people who are familiar with the team. Yep. They talk about the importance of tight end for the Patriots offense, how difficult it is, because you have to know not only the passing concepts, the routes, but also the blocking schemes as well. They go after and they get two guys who were top 10 guys in their position in the league.
Yes.
And then you go to someone like a Matt Junon, who again was a little bit more off the radar for me personally, because quite honestly, I didn't think that they would spend like they did. But they saw someone who fits their mold, 6'3", 260, who has been productive as a pass rusher, but can also set the edge, play the run. We talk about the importance of linebackers for Bill Belichick's defense. They are going after guys that are fundamentally important to their overall philosophy. Are they spending more on certain guys? Yeah, because talent costs money. And they didn't have enough talent on the team, which we all discussed ad nauseum over the past, year or two. So now they're going ahead and trying to correct it. And I think some of these moves, and those are just a couple of them, really speak to what they're trying to do. And it's hard. Look, guys, it's hard not to get excited with all the news they've had. I mean, you couldn't keep up with it yesterday. I don't know what my screen time was on my phone, but I bet you it was 12 hours. I was on my phone literally glued all day because it was just one thing after another. And if you're a Patriots fan, it's hard not to be excited with everything going on.
Absolutely, Derek. And it's funny because we all were just going back and forth with each other. And Derek said, emergency pod time. We weren't planning on doing one today. We were not planning on this. But again, there's so much going on that we wanted to. And listen, if you're watching live on Russ_Goldman on the Facebook pages of Pats fans or on Patriots Fourth and Two, feel free to share a comment with us. We might mention it during the show if you have a question for us, because we're going to go through all the players. But guys, I want to start here. I thought this would be an interesting way to look back at it, because I thought we did a really interesting show. The last show we did was just a couple days ago. So let's start here. Let's look at the results, guys, of what do you want? Remember, we did this at the end of the show. Steve, I'm going to start with you. I think you had good results here. Let's talk about the results. Your predictions on Patriots Fourth and Two, the last episode. 2 came in.
Well, I said I wanted 2 sexy picks and a Belichick pick. And I said Jonnu Smith, and Derek and I both had him as our top guy. So the fact that they were able to get him was fantastic. And I was very happy with that. And they did make an offer to Curtis Samuel. But apparently he's holding out because I guess he's getting a lot of people bidding on his services. And the third one was, I said, an unsexy pick, but something that's needed and a guy who will fit what they asked their people to do. And that was Henry Anderson of the Jets.
Yep. And that happened last night.
After we hung up on the call the other day, Russ called me up and it was like, Henry Anderson? And I was like, hey, and now he's here. So I felt pretty good about that.
Okay, very good. Derek, your picks. And again, we did this at the end of the show. Steve did well. I think you had Jonnu Smith. Who else did you have? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Honestly, I don't even remember off the top of my head. I think I had all the news.
Yeah, Corey Davis says number 2.
Right. All the news the last 36 hours have really jumbled my brain, and all I can think of is just free agency right now. I can't remember what I said on the last show, but I do remember talking about kind of like those that mid-tier level, like that second tier level receivers. And, I think with someone like, Nelson Aguilar specifically, a lot of people talked about the Patriots could be interested in him. And again, it's funny because I don't look at Nelson Aguilar and say he's a day one free agency guy. but look at the receiver market specifically right now for free agents. It's moving at a snail's pace.
Well, I'm going to share this comment.
It's a prime, it's a prime example of Bill and the Patriots basically striking on their terms and not waiting for the market to dictate, because they're in the position to be able to do that. So they said, like guys like Curtis Samuel getting a lot of interest. Corey Davis got a lot of interest. He signed with the Jets, and people like that. Kenny Galladay's, they're still waiting. They're going to be waiting for a little while, maybe because the receivers have been really deep in the last couple of years in the draft, along with the fact that it's pretty deep again this year. But the receiver market has not yet moved. They went after guys like, Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, who they felt had good roles and good fits in the scheme. They went out and got them. They weren't necessarily day one moves, but it just reflects to the overall point that I opened the show with, saying that they're in a rare position with a lot of wiggle room and financial flexibility, and not a lot of teams are. So that's why they're going after and getting their guys. Could the argument be made that they could wait and see and maybe get these guys on more team-friendly deals? Sure. But they don't want to wait and see. They want to go after their players and lock in guys that they targeted.
I was just going to say, they targeted these players, Derek. And why are we concerned about, again, the fact that they did this on day one? Why are we so concerned? I don't get that part of it.
Right.
I would rather we've been talking about them wanting to be aggressive, and they were. But they're being criticized for being aggressive.
On Sunday. Then, we mentioned on Sunday that it was a distinct possibility, rather than getting one of the top tier wide receivers, they would get two mid-tier guys.
And that's exactly what they did. But again, what is so terrible about this?
Nothing. You went after people that you actually liked.
Exactly.
And that you feel will fit in your offense.
Steve, they weren't settling for Aguilar.
No, this wasn't
a player from the Niners.
After everyone's picked through, they had their choice. Now they went after Samuel,
right?
But they kicked the tires there. And who knows how that will play out? But to answer that tweet earlier, I think the reason the wide receiver market is stagnant right now is because teams are all out trying to outbid each other now.
Right. That's a good point.
And these wide receivers are seeing what the market will bear, and
the money's probably lower than a lot of these guys were expecting, because teams are kind of strapped anyway. So, I mean, I think those are all factors too, which again, of all the picks the Patriots have had so far in free agency, of all the guys signed, Nelson Aguilar to me is really not one of my favorites. Him and Jalen Mills from the very beginning, I haven't really loved. And really that's because that goes back to Nelson Aguilar's drop issues. Last year I think he only had 5. He had a much better year last year in Oakland than he had in Philly, and he's kind of an inside-outside guy. They put him a lot on the outside. He was really able to go downfield. I think he had the second highest yards per reception in the entire league, only outside of Martez Vantez-Scantling for the Green Bay Packers. And with Mills, he struggled with consistency and got in trouble with over-aggressiveness at cornerback really often in Philadelphia. However, last year, they moved him to safety, had a much better year. They played him all over the field, has the versatility that Belichick likes. And maybe there you go. Maybe he takes over for someone like Jason McCourty as kind of a backup cornerback. And if Devin McCourty's done after this year, maybe they liked what they saw in Mills at free safety, and they say, okay, well, after McCourty's gone, maybe he's someone who can help us there as well. So
Russ is laughing because him and I had this conversation.
Steve said the exact same thing. I guess great minds think alike, you and Steve.
Well,
I didn't hear Steve's thoughts when you guys talked about this, but yeah.
I thought Duggar is going to get moved to free safety.
He might.
And I think Mills, because Mills did play quite a bit in the box, I could see Mills taking over a kind of a box safety role.
And he had more snaps in the box than he did at any other position, but he played left side, right side, slot quarterback on both sides, free safety.
It's all about the flexibility, though.
And I said the same thing, Derek, this morning to Russ. I was like, this is your Jason McCourty of 2021.
Yeah, I agree.
No, good stuff, guys. And we'll definitely break down all of the players. But I also want to sprinkle in some comments. And Midwest Pats fan has a good one, but we'll share that, my friend, at the end of the show because it talks about free agency and the draft. That's something that we are going to talk about. I'll bring that up in bit. But I want to share this now because I think it goes along with what we're talking about. Because we want to talk about our own players, and we are concerned about some players not being signed, David Andrews and, of course, Lawrence Guy. Targeting players is fine, but what about re-signing our players already on the roster that we need? I agree with you, my friend.
Sure.
Steve, over to you. What are your thoughts about this?
Well,
They've done some of this.
They did re-sign two guys yesterday, Dietrich Wise and Carl Davis. And again, it was a big position of need. Carl Davis played only just a little bit. I think he only played in 2 games at defensive line, but he looked pretty good while he was out there.
Yep.
And I think they liked what they saw there. So they're hoping they can get more of that out of him. Dietrich Wise had probably his best season as a Patriot. Now they've addressed that. I think, right now with David Andrews and Lawrence Guy, I think that those 2 guys right now, they're testing free agency. They're seeing what their market is before they make a decision. I think the Patriots have made offers to both of these guys. Yeah. I would doubt very much that they would just let, Andrews skip town without making an offer, especially. Sure. But, in regards to another guy, James White, I tweeted this morning. I'll be shocked if James White isn't a Tampa Bay Buck at the end of this week. That makes sense. I mean, to go back to Florida, being closer to his mom after last year and playing with Tom Brady. And you look at that Bucs team last year, their biggest weakness on offense was their lack of pass-catching running backs. How many times did I watch – well, you didn't watch much Tampa last year, right?
No, I didn't.
But I watched all their games. And,
of course, he's going to bring that up.
And their running backs, I would say they probably dropped 35 passes last year. And James White's not going to drop 35.
No. So. Derek, what are your thoughts about some of the players that we're talking about? As Steve mentioned, James White, Lawrence Guy, and David Andrews is the big one for me.
Yeah, David Andrews is going to be an interesting one. It seems like it's going to come down to either the Patriots or the Dolphins. Oh. And the kind of rumors, I know Jeff Howe floated it out there, is that whoever loses might go after Ted Karras, who was the backup center for the Patriots that signed with the Dolphins 2 years ago, or I can't remember if it was 1 year or 2 years ago, but yeah, Ted Karras could be the guy that the other one goes after, which is a fit. Obviously it would be a downgrade from Andrews, but it really just depends on the money and where Andrews wants to be. We knew Joe Thuney was going to go get paid. He did. We did not expect he was going to be with the Kansas City Chiefs. That's for sure. They gave him a monster deal. I'm happy for him. I'm bummed to see him go to the Chiefs, but I'm happy to see that he got paid because he's, an incredibly durable and a solid player. So good for him. As far as James White goes, I'd be disappointed to see him go, but I can't say I'm really that surprised. I would like to have him back because I just think he's a good guy to have in that room. But at the same time, he's kind of towards the end of his career. He might be able to find more success with another team. If it is Tampa, that would make sense because of the Brady connection, obviously. And James White really didn't. I mean, he had a lot of off the field issues, as we all know. And I say off the field issues, dealing with his horrible tragedy that his family experienced last year. So I know he was kind of sidetracked, but him and Cam never really had that connection in the offense. So. I think running back is going to be a target for the Patriots over the next day or two. It seems like they're going to be trying to add to that room. You have Sony Michel coming up on the last year of his contract. You have Damian Harris, obviously, but then Rex Burkhead's going to be off injury. I'm not sure what Brandon Bolden's situation is, so I expect the Patriots to make a move for a veteran running back at some point. And then Lawrence Guy, again, is the other one on the defensive line. Now, they made some good moves, and I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce, is it Gavin
Godchuk?
Is it Godchuk or is it? I don't know if it. We'll go with that for now. But a good solid defensive lineman, and obviously Henry Anderson, who a lot of people kind of penciled in from the moment he was becoming available. And so I think that with the run defense, we knew needed to be addressed. They've gotten some guys that need some help there. I still could see a scenario where Danny Shelton, for example, he was just released by the Lions a couple hours ago. Could he be back in the mix or somebody like that to help beef up that defensive line? Because they do need some help there. And, I think overall, to the commenter's point about re-signing guys, you do want to re-sign your own guys, but sometimes Lawrence Guy had a good run here. If he's going to get really overpaid. Who knows? It could be I think him and Andrews could be in situations that were similar to Donta Hightower when he was a free agent a couple of years ago, where the Patriots gave him an offer, said, go explore, see what you can get, come back to us, and we'll see if we can match it or if it's a fit here and go from there. So I think we're in a little bit of a wait and see period for a guy like Lawrence Guy.
Okay, excellent. I'm just going to share some quick comments that goes along with our opening segment where we're talking about the who do you want results, but also this. I have to share this because, Steve, Claire's excited here, okay? So we have to share this. Hunter Henry, baby. And please do check out the Claire Perspective. Great podcast. I would highly recommend that. And here's some comments for you, Derek. I got one of the three of my pick, Smith.
Yep.
And then, of course, Miguel watching as always. Thank you, Miguel.
I'm glad that Miguel has me remembering what I had to say, because I've been, like I said, just absolutely nuts the last couple of days. And obviously Miguel, no one's working harder than him right now trying to figure out this.
He's going through 3 number 2 pencils right now.
Oh yeah,
Miguel. Good luck to you, Miguel.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers, baby. All right.
Good luck to you because you have your work cut out. Miguel's the best in the business when it comes to the salary cap. Just if you have any questions about the salary cap, you ask Miguel.
While we're on the subject of that.
Go ahead.
Why do some Boston media members insist on quoting some other salary cap sites when we have when it comes to the Patriots? I don't look anywhere else but Miguel. If
I always just go to Miguel.
If I can't find it on Miguel's page, I'll DM him and say,
I messaged him. I messaged him earlier about a contract that I had saw.
There's no one better than Miguel. There's absolutely no one better. No one national. There's no one better
when it comes
than
to
Miguel.
the Patriots.
Not when it comes to the Patriots. There's no one.
And look. There's a lot of these deals. That's why I wasn't getting bent out of shape over Kendrick Bourne for the 49ers getting 3 years, $25 million in air quotes. It was really 5. It was like 5.25 or 5.5 guaranteed. It's closer to 3 and 15. Jalen Mills, his 4-year, $24 million. There's really only 9 guaranteed, and really it's just 2 years worth of guaranteed money, and the only money remaining in the last 2 years, from what I understand, will be his signing bonus proration. And as far as dead money goes, and Miguel was kind of helped me decipher some of that because and we kind of discussed it before we started the show, but a lot of people are looking at it and say, well, you can't buy your way to a Super Bowl or a championship because all these bad contracts have gotten teams in trouble in the past. I think what you're seeing right now is, sure, the Patriots have thrown out a lot of money to certain guys, but again,
this isn't the Redskins. This is not. Yeah. I'm sorry, the Washington football team. I apologize for that.
No. Hey, I mean, I good save, because between the teams moving cities and changing names, I'm losing track constantly. But I would say they're targeting guys again in their mid to late 20s. They're trying to build with guys for several years. Some of these contracts, even some of the ones that I'm not crazy about, you're looking at like a 2-year window. And by the way, the salary cap is supposed to jump up, maybe not much next year, but in 2023, when the new TV deal money comes in and they're supposed to jump up, you're really not going to worry about some of these smaller deals right now anyway. So again, when people are like, oh, how would they pay this much money for a guy who's going to be your third receiver? Well, let's wait to see what the contract details break down before you factor your analysis in there. You'd think that would be what a lot of some of these guys would do, but hot takes are important these days.
I guess so, Derek, and honestly, that's why I'm glad that we do this show. Why there are other podcasts that are talking Pats, because yes, we give our opinions. Yes, you guys can give hot takes, but it's a little bit different. We're analyzing. We're really looking into it rather than giving you that hot take. We're really we're fans. We're talking about the actual team, and we actually want the team to do well. We'll just call it what it is. All right. Coming up next.
Before we
go ahead, Steve.
Go on. I just wanted to add one other thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The possibility is there that a lot of these guys can fail. But again, I'm going to go back to another person we've had as a guest on the show, Evan Lazar.
Yes.
And Evan said, you can make that point, and it's valid. Sure, a lot of these guys can fail. The reason I feel confident that it won't is because of 2 words, Bill Belichick, because he doesn't target guys just on a name or talent standpoint. He targets them on how that he perceives they will fit into
Right.
his system.
Right. Exactly, Steve. And that's a good fundamental difference between just throwing money at a problem. The Patriots aren't throwing money at a problem. They actually have it to spend. It's how they're utilizing it. And there might be some that might not have liked how that they've used some of their cap space. We're going to talk about it, but I kind of like exactly what they've done. But again, only time will tell to see if all of the free agents that have come in are worth it. Again, the proof is in the pudding. We will find out. But on the face of it, I like a lot of what the Patriots have done. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about all the reported free agents that have signed with the Patriots. And I'll ask a couple questions to my co-host. How much has the Patriots offense improved? How much has the defense improved? And we'll end with, how does this affect the draft for the Patriots with all these moves in free agencies? Okay, guys, let's not waste any time. Let's get into talking about the players. And again, I'm going to throw this up there. Guys, you can rate the players if you want, because I thought it might be kind of cool to rate the players from 1 to 10. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I want to go through each and every one of the importance that they're going to have to the team, in your opinion. How big of a move are these individual players to the Patriots? So that's why I want to say rate the free agents. If you're watching online, feel free to share your thoughts on each individual one. We have to start with the first one, guys. This one, again, just started the ball rolling. I know Derek's just chomping at the bit to talk about Jonnu Smith a little bit more. And again, as we found out now from Miguel, Derek actually picked Jonnu Smith, which is kind of funny. He remembered it
as well. Yep.
So, okay, I'll give you first shot at this. Thoughts on this tight end? Again, 1 or 2, mattering on who you talk to about the tight ends available. The Patriots ended up getting both of them, but you were very high on Jonnu Smith.
I was, and he was my number 1 free agency target for the team. Steve as well. We talked about it on Sunday, just a couple of days ago. And for me, he got a great contract for him. It was well deserved. It's going to be a big time chess piece for Josh McDaniels. And this is someone who's an ascending player. He's only in his mid-20s. I think he's 25 years old right now. He's durable. He's athletic. He's gotten better as a blocker, and he's dangerous with the ball in his hands. I just love the fit here with Jonnu Smith and what he can bring to the team. And the addition of Hunter Henry, which we'll expand on in a second, you can now really move Jonnu Smith around. This is someone who's taken snaps out of the backfield. He's been lined up all over the field, a true weapon, and someone who's going to be a great red zone threat as well. And that's the theme with several of their offensive pieces. Yeah. You can tell that improving scoring in the red zone area was a high importance of all these offensive guys they've brought in. And Jonnu Smith is a match made in heaven. It's a home run signing, and I could not be happier. I mean, I'll tell you, between all these, all these moves have been exciting, but between Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, it's like I said before the show. It's I better contact the doctor because it's been a lot longer than 4 hours, boys. Okay, we don't need Cialis sponsoring. We don't need Cialis sponsoring this show. Okay, maybe a couple ice packs for me. Jonnu Smith, I am bursting at the seams right now.
I never thought you would actually mention that on the show. I'm just kidding. That's pretty funny.
It's a family show, but I'll tell you, it is a things are. I let out an audible yell when Jonnu Smith popped over my phone the other day. It was a good one.
Okay, now I just shared some comments. 9 out of 10 from our friend Chris, and Friel73 gave it 8.5 out of 10. Do you agree with that, Derek?
No, I give it a 10. I think the value's good. The fit's excellent. Like I said, durable, versatile, athletic, and again, great after the catch. It's a home run signing.
Okay, Steve, did I get an 11 from you?
I give it an 11, baby.
Wow, you got to be a topper.
And again, I'll go back to Russ. You and I spoke on Friday.
Yep.
And I was telling you, I was listening to Charlie Weiss.
Yes. And I listened to that conversation too. Great conversation.
And Charlie Weiss, who was the Patriots offensive coordinator when they won 3 Super Bowls. So I think he knows a little bit of something about the Patriots offense. He was talking about how they really need to go after a quality tight end, a dependable target in the offense, because this is what makes the Patriots offense go. It's having a viable tight end. And now not only do they have one, they have 2. And, when you look at how Tennessee used him, I think the Patriots are going to use him in much the same way. They're going to move this guy around. They're going to create matchup nightmares for him. Now you have two viable tight ends.
Yep.
And Cam Newton, in the past when he was successful, if he even is the quarterback starting when the season starts, he's always had, relied on good tight ends. Now he has two of them. I think the offense is going to look much, much better.
Okay.
I'm really, really happy with this. And we talked about it on Sunday.
Yeah.
This was the guy we wanted them to target because Hunter Henry probably has a little bit more upside in the passing game, but he has injury concerns. He's been hurt a lot. And this is a durable guy. Now they have both of them. So now we'll see what Devin Asiasi has to offer because I think they'll probably move Dalton Keene to fullback. And I think Asiasi will be a third tight end. And I think some of those other guys are going to be looking for work come August.
Okay. Well, I was going to leave this to later because this actually happened today. But since we're talking about Jonnu Smith, let's go right into talking about Hunter Henry. Let's stick with talking about the tight ends. Claire, I hope you're very happy because we are focusing on the tight ends right now. Derek, over to you. Give me a rating for this, for bringing in Hunter Henry. You already talked a little bit about it. But, it's funny. I don't want to talk about a former Patriots player that's no longer with us. But at a time, the Patriots had two dominant tight ends together. We're kind of have an opportunity to go back to that. And I think that's always been the vision of Josh McDaniels and Belichick's offense, not just to have one dominant tight end, but to have two, to have these matchup nightmares. We might have that again.
Yeah, it's again another great signing. It's a 3-year deal. I think it was around $37.5 million, 25 in guarantees. For me, Hunter Henry, we know how glowingly Bill talked about him. Specifically when they played the Chargers just this season, and many people thought that's why Henry could be a fit here because the team has a need, and Bill seemed to really enjoy really like his game. But Henry, to me, he's had some durability issues at times, but he's a very, very good player when he's on the field, and he's more of a traditional tight end. Again, another red zone target. He'll be more of an inline tight end, and this move again allows Jonnu Smith to be moved around, and you are getting a little bit of that Boston TE party back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do agree with you. I do think that's part of the vision here. And to your point about Cam, assuming Cam is the quarterback, which, again, nothing is really set in stone given his contract, but on paper right now on March 16th, with Cam Newton under center, he has had success with tight ends in the past. Now you give him two premium tight ends. Again, both guys are top 10 tight ends in the NFL, a strong offensive line, and you can, hopefully have them have success. And I think McDaniels is going to have a lot of fun with the personnel groupings for the Patriots this season.
Okay. How about you, Steve?
Well, see, my last quote there about Jonnu Smith, I kind of lobbed you a softball, Russ. I thought you were going to hit it out of the park when I talked about Jonnu Smith and Cam Newton, and you kind of skipped over it.
Sorry.
Russ has a contact with very close ties to the Patriots organization. And he was saying for 3 days before, the legal tampering, he was hearing that the Patriots were going to sign.
Well,
Jonnu
I didn't hear,
Smith.
but someone I know heard.
Well, they relayed it to you. So
yep.
Russ,
So
you're
you
doing
heard
it wrong.
it.
You're just supposed to say source. That's it. Just say
okay,
your source
source.
and just walk away. It absolves you of anything.
Right.
Hands are clean.
But Russ heard that they were going to sign Jonnu Smith because
Jonnu Smith really wanted to play with Cam Newton.
It's amazing how that happens. And, it's actually, to this point, Colts all-pro linebacker Darius Leonard had a tweet the other day talking about how Cam is, he's excited to see Cam this year with all these guys, and he's been disrespected. And I didn't really think too much of it about the actual words he was saying, but I just thought just his feelings behind it. I think that goes to a conversation that we've had in the past about, sure, we saw Cam's ability last year, and he certainly struggled for a variety of reasons, right? But guys in the locker room, guys around the league, they still respect Cam Newton as a player. And, someone like Jonnu Smith, if what Russ heard was correct, and I think that was a factor based on the money, well, I'm sure that helped,
right,
and the actual signing, is guys still like he still has a cachet. That's why it's not necessarily a bad deal if he is your bridge guy for another year or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that tweet kind of just made me think of I sometimes I feel like fans, media members, you lose track of what do the other players around the league think, and I just thought that was one small reflection of what Russ may have heard from a different player.
Okay, very good stuff. I'm just going to share some more comments. This is from our friend Chris, 9 out of 10. Our other friend here, 9.5 out of 10. Guys, do you kind of agree with that?
I would put Smith higher because I trust his durability more than Hunter Henry's. If Henry was as durable as Smith, I would say, it's pretty much even Steven. And Henry's been a more accomplished player, but I think Smith's ceiling is higher, and I think they're hoping that they can unlock more of that. But the only reason about the Hunter Henry deal, and I'm not really worried about it, but the only negative about it is I'd say he's had some durability concerns throughout his career.
Okay, very good. Steve, how about you?
Yeah,
do you agree with the ratings?
I like Hunter Henry, the player, when he's on the field. I think, as I said earlier, I think he has more upside in the passing game when he's healthy. But he's had those durability issues. That's why I put the Smith signing a little bit higher.
Okay.
But when you combine the two of these guys, I mean, I think that this offense is really going to click next year. I really do. I'm looking at this offense. And again, you go back to the days of the two tight end offense with the Patriots. They didn't have that big number one wide receiver. They had a couple of twos.
Right. Exactly, Steve. And we're going to talk about this. And I just want to mention this because I actually was listening to Patriots Unfiltered today. And everyone probably has listened to Patriots Unfiltered. Great show. And I'm not going to mention the person's name who said that he didn't think that the Patriots offense was going to improve much at all because of Cam Newton. But his last name rhymes with Brillo. So I think you can guess who actually doesn't think.
Just say the name. It's just unbelievable. Why are we pussyfooting around Elvis? Just say the name.
Cam, I take it. So.
Okay.
And you know what? To be fair to Hunter Henry too, he's only missed 9 games in the last 4 years. But my overall point is that he has, so he's missed basically a half a season of 4. But he has been banged up quite a bit. But if you just look at the production of Hunter Henry over last season and Jonnu Smith over last season and compare it to what the Patriots had, I mean, you're going from a brand new Tesla off the lot, from what was, a beat down 92 Corolla. I mean, it's a big difference. Yeah.
Sure. But Derek, this goes back to the point. And again, the argument that's been on talk radio, and I just mentioned one, and again, great show, and I have a lot of respect for everyone, including the person I just mentioned. And no, Derek, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but let's just say it's about Cam Newton. So does it matter that we have all these new weapons for him? I say that regardless of, even if it is Cam Newton, the Patriots offense has improved a great deal. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And, look, here's the thing. So if you're talking about the Patriots offense, yes, it's absolutely improved. And if you're looking at the positives of the offense right now, offensive line is strong. They have a good running back. I know they're going to make a couple more complimentary moves, but I like Damian Harris a lot. Now you have 2 great tight ends. You have a couple of, I would say, mid-level solid receivers. And the receiver group, for me, we can talk about it, but I have a feeling by the time the next show, we do a next show, there might be something different going on at receiver as well. And we can talk about the receiver position down the road because I don't think we're seeing the whole picture at receiver specifically. But they see guys that basically can get open and, do something for their offense. And I think all of them have had success either getting down the field or in the red zone scoring area, which, again, was an emphasis for all these guys. And look, if you look at Cam, we've talked about the issues he had last year. We all saw the issues that he had, okay? We weren't really thrilled about the idea of him coming back, but we all acknowledged based on what was available, it might make sense as a 1-year stopgap. Now that it's a second year in the system, you upgrade the talent around him and you're giving him a pretty good offensive line. Now you're hoping that you see, marginal improvement or great improvement. I guess we'll see. That's kind of to be determined.
Right.
But is it something for the future? No. But if he's your 1 year guy to get you, if you're going to take a young player this year and develop him, that's an option too. For someone to say, you still have Cam Newton throwing the ball, so what's the point of all these pieces?
That's what I keep hearing.
I can understand. I can understand that because at times watching Cam throw the ball was painful. But I would also say that with the options that they're going to have and the ability to move some of these guys around and put them in a position to be successful, I think you're going to see Cam flourish in more of like a just make it easier on him to kind of dink and dunk and move things up. He's going to be put in position to do it. The offense will be better because they'll have more versatility to move things around, and you'll see a lot of different formations that will open things up, and they'll be able to scheme him into success, basically.
See, I agree with that, Derek. And listen, I will say this about Cam Newton, and I wanted him back for different reasons, but I think that if you put him in the right position to succeed, as you're saying, I think that he can be semi-successful. We'll only find out how successful, and obviously if he's a starting quarterback, but I think that you've surrounded him with players that are going to help him. Now it's on him. And
let me put it to you like this too. Like, who last year did opposing defensive coordinators have to game plan or worry about? Nobody. Do you think when the Patriots play whoever, this season, do you think the defensive coordinator is going to worry about Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry? Hell yes.
It's going to change everything, Derek.
Yeah. So how they move these guys throughout the field is going to have defensive players react. No one was really reacting last year on defense. They were just attacking Cam because they said, he's not fast enough to get by us. They're either going to run the ball and he can't throw it behind us. So they weren't worried about it.
Right.
Now they have other guys to worry about. It was an easy offense to defend last year. And right now they're showing that they're going to be anything but in this coming season.
Okay, Steve, your thoughts on this, and then we'll move on. And I'm actually going to share, go and talk about the wide receivers because we're talking about the offense. So just overall.
You look at the tight end situation. Last year, the last 2 years, the Patriots were number 32 in the league. Now you have a team that likes to run the football like the Patriots do. Now you have two tight ends on the field that are actual viable targets. So now the defense can't pin back their ears because you have two tight ends that can line up and start the block and then slip out behind you. And these are the guys that can hurt you.
Yep.
Unlike the guys that we had the last 2 years that they weren't going to game plan around. Now they picked up a wide receiver that 660 yards of his 896, talking about Aguilar, or yards after the catch. And that's something the Patriots haven't had. Yep. They haven't had a guy that gives you those yards after the catch. That's a huge thing for this team because if you're focusing on the tight ends, granted, Aguilar's not a number one wide receiver, but if he gets the ball in his hands, and if he gets past that first guy.
Steve, let me ask you, can he be a number two? Someone told me today, no, he's a number three. Can he be a number two?
Sure. The Patriots have had plenty of number twos. I think him, Jacoby Myers.
All they had last year was number two.
Yeah. I think him, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne are all number twos.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's absolutely nothing wrong. And you and I talked about this
off air. As long as you have more than one or two,
right?
Then you could spread the ball around. Now you have
that's all complementary.
Then now you have two tight ends that are viable targets in the passing game,
and they're going to open everything up. And that's what's great about this. We're going to go back to the way it was about 6 or 7 years ago.
Because hey, when teams started, pushing the box up, what did we used to say? They're going to hit Gronkowski down the seam. Well, neither of these guys are Rob Gronkowski, but they're pretty damn good.
Exactly.
But both Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, they're all guys who can attack the seam. And Smith and Aguilar can really go down the field and make some pretty big plays. Aguilar's another guy who, he did have 5 drops last year, which was actually.
But his yards after the catch, Derek, is what Steve just said.
Yards after the catch, yards per reception, deep touchdowns, which basically means 20 yards or more. All those were high. I think he had 8 touchdowns and 6 of them were 20 yards or more. So
that's significant.
Yeah. So again, he's a player who struggled with the Eagles. the Raiders he had a great fit with Derek Carr last year and was able to kind of maximize it. Now I'm wondering about the money a little bit because he went from literally a vet minimum deal to all of a sudden making what seems to be, as far as what we know right now, around 11 million with incentive or not including incentives for the next 2 years. I guess we'll see. But this is, again, someone who the Patriots clearly thought that they could work into their offense, and they went out and got him. He wasn't a day one free agent receiver. If you had asked anybody 3 or 4 days ago who was the first receiver going to be off the board, you figured it was probably going to be Kenny Golladay or Curtis Samuel or one of those top guys. But Aguilar was someone who kind of the Patriots wanted to move in on and try to fit what they're doing. So
exactly. And if he's a fit, why do I care that he's not Samuel? If he's the fit. And as Steve said, it sounds like they were in on Samuel, but they couldn't get him. And they wanted to make a move quickly. They obviously liked Aguilar, so they went for him. And, and again, I have no issue with them going after players that are, say, number twos. Listen, the Patriots have been filled with them. Would anyone call Julian Edelman a number one, Derek? No, they call him probably a good number two.
No, but
Danny
look at
Amendola.
it too. And I know for a fact, by the way, the Patriots did make a contract offer to Curtis Samuel. I was told, I literally reached out to someone. I asked, I asked about the details. They said they didn't know, but they had put an offer out there. Samuel was exploring other options. The market was moving slow, and he had a lot of competition, and they didn't really want to wait. I don't know if these moves totally rule it out, but I know that they've had contact, and I'm not sure if these other issues are. I don't know if maybe they just figured out. You know what? We're just gonna move on and go from there. But I would also say, look. At the receiver position, would either one of you guys call Julian Edelman a lock for next year? Like it seems like he's for sure gonna play.
Absolutely not.
It seems like he's for sure gonna play, but he might show up to camp and get hurt again. Like I don't want that for him at all, because obviously we know how everyone here loves.
He might
Julian
end up
Edelman.
with Dustin Pedroia, anyone that is a Red Sox fan.
I hope that's not the case. But can you really count on Edelman?
No.
For sure. I'd say no. N'Keal Harry, there's been trade rumors about him. There's reporting that several teams have reached out about N'Keal Harry. Marquise Lee, are you counting on him? Devin Smith, Jacoby Myers, I would say sure. Gunnar Olszewski, I would say not as a receiver, but he might be listed as a receiver like Matt Slater's listed as safety. Yeah, but Gunnar is more of a special teams guy. Christian Wilkerson, Isaiah Zuber, none of these guys are locked in. So I would say, look, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, these guys are your probably your third, number 3 receivers. Same with Jacoby Myers. They're all kind of guys that can do some things to be successful, but they're not going to be like, the number one guy. Your number one guys right now are 2 tight ends, which is totally fine.
And that's fine, Derek. And again, I always like to focus on 2 players that I thought were great wide receivers in the Patriots system. David Givens and Deion Branch. Neither one were number ones. They weren't number ones. They were good, as Steve and I were talking about. They're great number twos. And they just got the job done. Even Troy Brown that went along with that. David Patton.
I don't think you even have a Deion Branch level yet. I would say right now you're more looking at like David Givens and Jabbar Gaffney type players, which is, again, fine. It is.
Why not?
It is
Jabbar Gaffney is another one.
But like I said before, I don't think they're done with the receiver position. Whether that happens in the next couple of days during the draft or right after the draft, I do think there's going to be some more movement at receiver because there's a lot of names listed as receivers. But I would say is only like real locks. 3, 4 of them. I don't know. I don't look at it. I don't look at it and say the receiver. I would, if you're filling out your depth chart at home for the Patriots, I would use pencil for that position.
Okay, quickly, guys, because I want to focus on the defense to finish up the show. Kendrick Bourne, give me a rating, Derek.
I would say like a 6.5, 7. I like Kendrick Bourne. Let me say that. I was surprised a little bit about the money. Most of these guys that they've paid are all more proven than Bourne is. Bourne is someone who is an ascending player who the 49ers like, but they've also allocated a lot of high draft picks to that position as well. They got more of the lion's share of the targets. Bourne is someone who's not going to blow by you with speed, but is a tough player, can get open, catch the ball, good hands, get yards after the catch. He's a chain mover. I think he's very similar to what Jacoby Myers brings to you, and I think he will have a similar type effect in this role. And he also is someone who, again, is really good in the red zone. He was one, aside from Kittle, he was probably the best red zone target for the 49ers last season. So I think that you see him again, is like your third, fourth guy with him and Myers being interchangeable. And I don't think it's really an indictment on Myers. I think they like him, but I also think with Jakobi Meyers, they realize he has physical limitations, and maybe they think that Bourne has a little bit more to unlock that he wasn't able to in San Francisco, again, because there were more talented players ahead of him.
Okay, Steve?
I agree with everything Derek just said. I think he's one of those guys that they see an ascending young guy, and they don't think he's hit his peak yet at this point. So I think the offer to him, they see he could be like a Jakobi Meyers and maybe more than that. And I think that, you look at that 49er offense, I thought he fit in really, really well there. And I think the Patriots believe he can do the same thing here.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excellent. Good stuff, guys. All right. We are kind of running out of time, but I want to focus on the defense, but I really want to focus on one main player, and we'll talk about some others as well. We have to go right to the big ticket item here. Let's talk about Matt Junon. Now, what's interesting about this player, and I know a lot of people have said they didn't even envision the Patriots coming in for him. Too high priced, right? What was not even on a lot of people's radars. Well, they brought him in. I've heard the comparisons, guys. I've heard the comparisons to Adalius Thomas, which is interesting coming from the Ravens. Steve and I had a very good conversation about him, about what John Harbaugh compared him to the output of Terrell Suggs. That, to me, actually excites me a little bit. Adalius Thomas makes me a little nervous. Terrell Suggs, not as much, even though I was not a fan of him as a player, but you can't not look at how much he put into the team for the Baltimore Ravens. We're talking about Suggs, the impact that he had. So, Steve, I'll start with you. Thoughts on linebacker Matt Junon? And, it's funny because I was listening to a show, and they said that there's let's just say that I think it was Pro Football Focus actually said buyer beware on him, which I find interesting. Your thoughts?
Well, I think he's a perfect fit for what Belichick likes in his linebackers. I think that he's going to be a movable chess piece. And that's what the Ravens did with him. The Ravens moved him all around. Yep. And, he's a guy that can do a lot of really good things. He's a very good pass rusher. He's had 30.5 sacks since 2017. He drops into coverage more than people would envision. Yep. He's good against the run. He's just a really good football player. He's a guy that takes his craft seriously. His preparation and his practice habits are supposedly off the charts. So that's a guy Belichick's going to love having on this team. I think that this was a really, really good signing. I didn't foresee this because we talked about the money. I thought that he would be out of their price range, and obviously not. And I loved his comment. Somebody on Baltimore radio asked Junon yesterday afternoon, "Why'd you pick New England?" He was like, "I didn't. They picked me." So he's like, "I'm on to New England." I love that. That's what you want to hear. So okay,
Derek, your thoughts?
I mean, Matt Judon's a stud. He'll be 29 by the time the season starts, 6'3", 260. He can rush the passer. He can set the edge. He can drop into coverage. There's a lot of great ability about him. He's got the size that Belichick really likes for that position. I mean, and hey, look, I think there's a lot of questions about the front seven and what they're going to do, and we'll talk about alignments more as we see it kind of unfold a little bit throughout the offseason. But I mean, between Donta Hightower, supposedly returning, and some little flashes we've seen from Josh Uche last year, Matt Judon, Chase Winovich, I think the pass rush is going to look a lot better, for the Patriots. And they've added some beef to the defensive line. Clearly, they wanted to address this area, and Matt Judon is a big time splash signing. This is not a cheap little deal with BS money. This is a legit contract, and someone who can definitely be a presence. Now, some people, like you mentioned the name of Adalius Thomas, Russ, and I've heard that comparison. And I think when you're talking about a player coming from a system like Baltimore that's very aggressive, and there's an emphasis put on certain on pass rush and putting him in position to just rush the passer, he can. It's always a little scary when you move schemes, but this is someone that they worked out when he was coming out of school. They had a private workout at him before the draft even started. Okay, and sometimes when you see coaches or GMs scout these players before the draft, it's not necessarily only because they want to draft the guy. It's also because if he's available down the line, they've gotten a chance to be in front of him a little bit. Yeah. And, and that's just, and if you're playing against them, of course. But with Junon, what he's able to do, I think because he is also a great run defender, he can set the edge. I'm not worried about, a real bust rate there. But I think, I'm not even necessarily expecting him to rack up double-digit sacks, but I think he is going to be able to add to the pass rush as a whole. And with your other pieces in the mix, he's someone that the opposing offense has to be accountable for. Right. And again, that makes you dangerous when you have a lot of versatile weapons in the front seven, which the Patriots do.
Okay, excellent stuff, guys. Just because we're running short on time, and we can expand on the next show. We can talk a little bit more about the defense because I think the defense has improved a great deal. But I just want to get your overall thoughts. Let's do them all together. Steve, thoughts on Jalen Mills. We're also going to get your thoughts on Henry Anderson and on, is it Devon Godshaw? Did I say that right? Just thoughts on those three players, and that's how we'll end the show.
I like all three signings. I thought that Mills, as I mentioned earlier, he's kind of going to be that Jason McCourty type piece. I see him this year really, moving around, filling in where they need him to. He might play in the box, if Chung needs a break, or Phillips. They might put him in slot corner if Jonathan Jones has to come out. I see him moving all over the place. That's the strength of this player. He's very, very versatile. And I like the signing. I thought it was a really good one. And, I just thought that, with the secondary possibly evolving, because we've heard rumors that, they might trade Stephon Gilmore. Having a versatile guy like this guy comes in handy.
Okay. And what about Godshaw and also Henry Anderson? Obviously, that was your pick.
Henry Anderson was my pick, so you know how I feel about that. I thought that was a great signing because I think he fits. He fits what the Patriots like in their interior guys, and he can get after the passer. He's not just a really, really good run stuffer. He can get after the quarterback from the interior and bring some pressure. Godshaw is for a nose tackle. He's a little bit undersized at 311, but you see his lower body. His lower body is very thick.
Yep.
And he's a really good run stuffer. It's something they needed because their run defense at times last year was atrocious. So I like all three of these signings on the defense. I think that all three of these guys are going to have a role. And, we're going to see how they all intermingle with each other and how it all plays out. But, bringing back Davis and Dietrich Wise. I think the defensive line and Bo Allen is still on the team.
Yep.
So
he's like the Loch Ness Monster. No one's seen him, but he's apparently there,
yeah. But, on paper, your interior line looks pretty good right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll skip my thoughts. I defer. I agree with everything what Steve said. I would say I would hope that Lawrence Guy is brought back because if you can add him too, then you're really cooking on that defensive line. You can take some guys in the later rounds of the draft and try to develop them. But in terms of right now, you have a pretty solid group with those players. But if you were to lose Lawrence Guy in free agency, the additions of who we're talking about would help ease that blow because Lawrence Guy is a very good player. But I know Russ, we were going to touch on the draft real quickly before the show ends.
Yep. No, we can do that. We can do that right now, Derek. Just real quick, and I'm glad that you brought us there because I want to get your thoughts on this. And actually, we had someone send a message to us as well, comment on this. How does free agency affect the draft now? So let's end with that.
Yeah, I think it opens up a couple of interesting possibilities from if you're the Patriots. Like I said before, and like Steve mentioned, you mentioned, they've really addressed a lot of their bigger needs. They're really cruising through the needs, and in free agency, that's what you want to do. If you have the money, take care of your needs, worry about best player available in the draft. And for me, I would say that the more I'm kind of seeing the additions of all these players around the quarterback, I'm starting to go even more all in on the idea that the Patriots could go get a quarterback in the first round of this draft. And I think that you can say, okay, well, the Patriots, they're putting players around Cam.
Yep.
Some people might say, well, you still have Cam throwing the football. Sure. But let's not forget, when Kansas City, for example, was building their team, they built up the offense around Alex Smith. They drafted Patrick Mahomes. He sat for a year and then ushered Mahomes in. Cam in this situation could be Alex Smith, and their draft pick could be the guy in the first round.
That's a great analogy.
I don't know about you guys, and call me crazy, but after the last couple of days, I'm starting to think that Belichick is going to be, if he's going to be this aggressive in free agency, I'm wondering if he's going to stop there. And I think that he knows the most important position is quarterback. And I think that he likes Cam. But again, we know the contract is a placeholder. We've heard that term over and over and over again.
Do you think he'll be aggressive as our friend Midwest Pats fan? Could the Patriots actually package something to move far up here?
I think so. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Okay. And we'll get into the draft talk more after free agency kind of dies down a little bit. But let me say this.
Yep.
Matt Ryan, for example, just restructured his contract that would make it very difficult to get rid of him in the next 2 years. If that takes Atlanta out of the quarterback running at the 4th overall pick, if the Patriots really want to be aggressive, can they trade from 15 to 4? I don't know. I don't know how aggressive they're going to be, but I think it's hard to rule anything out based on the moves they've made the last couple of years or the last couple of hours. And so I think you understand, the Jaguars, the Jets, the Panthers, the Broncos, the 49ers, those are your competition teams for young quarterbacks if you're the Patriots. So I honestly am starting to believe that the Patriots are going to trade into the top 7 for a quarterback this year. I think they want to get ahead of Carolina. If they can get up higher, they can package a couple of their picks. They've addressed some other needs, and they can go get their guy that they can groom behind Cam for a year. That's what I'm starting to believe.
Wow, I hope you're right, Derek. Steve, I'm going to give you a final say on this because, again, I think that our free agency does affect what they do in the draft, but let's end with this. Do you think the Patriots are going to be as aggressive in the draft and do what Derek just said? Because, again, it would be out of what the Patriots normally do, being that aggressive, but they have done it before. Belichick has moved up. This would be really aggressive if he does it, like, say, into the top 10. And he probably would have to get probably the quarterback that he wants.
Yeah, and again, how the board is going to play out is going to dictate a lot of that, right? A lot of people had the Jets taking quarterback at number 2, but what if they decide that they're going to stick with Sam Darnold?
That's right.
They just picked up Corey Davis. So what if they decide, hey, we're going to stick with Sam Darnold? Now
then that Jets just changes everything.
Right. And, like Derek just mentioned about Atlanta, that was another team that everyone said, well, they're going to draft the heir apparent to Matt Ryan. So now, again, this might play into the Patriots' favor once again. I think they're going to be aggressive. Okay. I think, everything that we're seeing right now leads me to believe that a quarterback is definitely in play with their first draft pick.
See, I agree with this. And you and I talked about this, Steve. For those who think the Patriots are still going to go after Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't see it because of the cap issues that they would have. I know some have made the argument that they can still do it, but I don't think that's the plan anymore. I think the plan is what Derek and I really wanted, is to get that elite quarterback that they want, that they actually want, and move up to do it. I'm with Derek. I'm with you, Steve. I think they're going to do it. We'll see if we're right. Anyways,
and I'll end on this real quick.
Go ahead.
If I'm reading the tea leaves right, okay, the last 36 hours, you've seen Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Jay Glazer, Field Yates, Mike Garafolo, to name just a few, tweet out Patriots news and then end with some kind of cryptic, similar phrasing, saying something along the lines of, and they're not done yet.
Yes.
Or they still have more to go. Jay Glazer did it as early this morning after the Hunter Henry signing.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know.
They know something.
There's something brewing here. And I don't know what it is. I'm not going to pretend to know what it is. It could be something like a Gilmore trade. It could be something like a trade for a wide receiver. It could be something like a trade for a quarterback, something in the draft. I'm not sure what it is. But when there's smoke, there's fire. And I see the breadcrumbs being dropped by all these national guys that are very tight end on both sides with the teams, the agents, the players. And I just have a feeling that there's another shoe to drop that could send this whole thing just totally over the edge. And I'm not exactly sure again what it is, but the more you see these kind of things come out, the more I'm starting to think that there's another big piece of the puzzle that we haven't just seen yet.
I tend to agree with you. Okay, guys. Well, listen, thank you as always for joining us. If you're joining us live on the Pats Fans Facebook page, also on the Patriots Fourth and Two Facebook page, and on my Twitter account, Russ_Goldman. Also, please do subscribe to the Pats Fans YouTube channel. Ian Logan's not going to be happy with me that I did not do it at the beginning of the show, but Ian, I'm doing it now. Please do subscribe to the Pats Fans YouTube channel. Please help us find other Pats fans that really want our show. They want to see our show, and there are going to be a lot of interesting videos on the Pats Fans YouTube channel as we go into the rest of the offseason, into the new season. But let's wrap this up. For Steve Balestrieri and Derek Havens, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Patriots Fourth and Two, the official podcast of PatsFans.com.